Monday, July 3rd, 2023. Bishop William J. Barber II, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign.
For voters. But here's another thing that the president is going to have to deal with as well, something
President,
that is something of a call to arms. An open letter released today challenges not only our political leaders but everyday Americans to use their anger over the Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling to power a push for change. The letter reads in part, quote, "Tomorrow, as the nation turns 247 years old, we find ourselves amid an orchestrated moral crisis, and it is up to people of moral conscience to hold this nation accountable to itself. Finger-pointing at extremists is a wasteful exercise that wrongfully whittles this moment in our history down to a difference of opinion rather than a crisis of civilization." The letter continues, "Yes, last week the extremists on the Supreme Court dealt significant blows to our civil and human rights protections. But how many other politicians, organizations, and people were complicit through their participation or inaction as we watched our democracy being slowly chipped away and most recently bulldozed over the last 10 years? Well, the author of that letter, founding director of the Center for Public Theology and Public Policy at Yale Divinity School, Reverend William Barber, joins us now. So you've written this open letter, Reverend Barber, and you've addressed it as well to the president. What are you hoping will come of it? What action do you think will follow from this?
Well, Ben Augustine said that kingdoms without justice are mere robberies, and robberies are like small kingdoms, but large empires are piracy writ large. And when 6 people on the Supreme Court use that power in an unsuperior way, and they seal the deal on the destruction of affirmative action, they significantly weaken protections of humanity for gay people. They refuse to protect the right to vote for former incarcerated people. They refuse to relieve a fraction of the heavy debt on millions of students in an economy where people are hurting, and 1/3 of all poor people are poor, and poverty is the 4th leading cause of death in this nation, above homicide and respiratory disease. And when that happens, and the Supreme Court and political leaders conspire to lie about history and embrace actions that are contrary to love and justice and our deepest moral and constitutional values, then this is both piracy and perjury at the same time. But we can't just point the finger at extremists. We have to remember and raises a hard question, so biblical kind of question. What has been our responsibility across the board? Justice Thomas was nominated and appointed to the Supreme Court under Democratic majority in 1991. He was also supported by many black organizations, civil rights organizations, when Thurgood Marshall said that color should not be the only reason that we should look at a Supreme Court justice. We also know from 2009 to 2011 to 2020 to 2022, Democrats held a majority in both houses of Congress and did not fix the Voting Rights Act, did not protect women's right to choose, did not pass a living wage to ensure that we could begin to move people out of poverty. So rather than just string upon, we got to tell the truth, but we also need to look across the board, and everybody needs to ask, what is our role in this? What have we done, and what must we continue to do? We're here in a large part because of the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, which allowed voter suppression, and we got Trumpism in Trump with 85,000 votes in less than 3 states. We also have to say to the American public, democracy is hard. You cannot sit out of an election. You cannot sit out, because if you do, extremism has a way of creeping in. So we sent a letter. We sent to the president that President Biden, you need to be a bully pulpit now, like Theodore Roosevelt and President Franklin Roosevelt, and shut down the lies and the cultural laws, and constantly, over and over again, tell the truth. I think it's Isaiah 58 that calls it cold shofar. There comes a time you have to raise bigger than just party, left versus right. That's too puny now. Congress, you need to pass, and Democrats in the Senate should pass everything they would pass if they had both sides of Congress. Say, this is what we'll do, and if you give us both houses, then we will finish the job. But people need to see now the actual bills that you will pass when you get the power, and you will not change. Civil rights organizations and human rights organizations need to recognize we can't do this. It's not about having a black agenda and a white agenda, a gay agenda. We're being attacked from all sides with a united voice, and there must be a coming together to address these issues. Moral leaders and preachers must go to their pulpits. Now, the Pew Foundation said the issues of poverty and justice don't even register in pulpits around the country, and what Americans are hearing, that must change. And lastly, economists, we need them to get in the public sphere as moral economists and show how a focus on culture wars and trickle-down economics and neoliberalism is not only immoral, but it's hurting people. And now, poverty is the fourth leading cause of death. And we need the media to do what you're doing this morning over and over again. Tell the truth about what's happening in reality, because we are in a crisis of civilization.
Reverend Barber, Al Sharpton, one of the things that I saw down at the Essence Festival this week is that people are outraged about these latest of the Supreme Court decisions, and as you probably know, some of the major civil rights groups, we've called for a huge march on Washington around the 60th anniversary in August, and then mobilizing people there and mobilizing across racial lines. The Anti-Defamation League and LULAC and other groups are part of it. The practical part of it is mobilizing marches is good if we send people back with a real political agenda to vote, not based on party, but based on who would deal with offsetting some of the battle against affirmative action, women's right to choose, student debt loan. The question that I raised, and I think a lot of us are concerned about, is where is the white church? You
asked me that question. Let me point the point. The church is not just the white church. The Pew Foundation did a study of 50,000 pulpits in this country, and the issue of poverty and justice, just like, for instance, poor and low-wealth people who make less than $50,000 a year voted overwhelmingly 54% for, say, buying the Harris ticket. That is not the question. In the Poor People's Campaign, the National Call for Moral Revival, we just had 1,000 delegates representing every race, creed, and color from across the country. We're calling for 30 state capitals, massive gathering in 2024 into the polls. We touched 15 million voters, 8 million voters in 15 states the last time. We had over 100,000 people in the street in August, June of last year, and pushed them to polls. We must have an agenda. But y'all get it, but each time I come on, it's not just about...
Is the silence of the white church. My question is
that is a false. You look at the UCC Church, Disciples Church, Methodist, Presbyterian. It's not the silence of the white church. You can even talk about the silence of the black church. The issue is everybody has to come together. You know, even in the civil rights movement, it was not the whole church. Martin King was put out his own denomination. What we're talking about here is a crisis of civilization, where everybody has to do an assessment of what we have not done. In the book of Samuel, Samuel said, when you face this kind of enemy, everybody must go to Mizpah. Everybody. Not some people, but the entire country.
But in this climate, Reverend, there's no doubt that there's those of us that have taken certain stands, and everybody must be responsible. But in this climate, you have major white church denominations now saying women can't be pastors. You have silence in terms of affirmative action law. Shouldn't we also be challenging, particularly those that are clergymen, those that have done what we admonished in the Bible, those that have posed as moral leaders, but that have used their pulpits to sanction immoral social policies?
I agree with you, Ralph. And the point is, we're doing that, but you have to also recognize all of the, I said, UCC, Disciples of Christ, Methodist, Presbyterian, who are not white evangelicalism. In fact, white evangelicalism is going down. Look at the data. And what is happening is there's a rise of moral leaders, and not just churches, Quakers, Unitarian, Jewish community. They're all rising and coming to this moral. So this letter calls us, all of us as moral leaders, to engage in this moral moment. Isaiah 58 says it like this, Rev. There comes a time, and you know this, Isaiah 58, that we must engage in cold shofar. We must raise our vote and our voices loud across the board. So whether it's white or black or Jewish or Christian or Muslim or whatever it is a moment in which all of us have to come together. is a moment when across the board we have to come together. It's a moment when we need to look at the agenda. And one of the things we've done at the Center for Theology and Public Policy and with the Pairs of the Brief is actually produced a higher ground moral agenda and said if we, for instance, were to pass a living wage, 41% of African Americans would come out of poverty instantly. If we were to stop voter suppression, not just black people, but 50 million Americans, 50 million black, white, and others who are being suppressed would not be suppressed. So we have to have a deep look in this moment of moral crisis. 330,000 people died during COVID from the lack of health care. They didn't die from COVID, they died from the lack of health care. And we have to wrestle with that. We have to repent of when we've had power and didn't use it, and come to this moment with a fresh commitment, with a bulletproof fit, and saying we recognize this is not just between the Democrats, Republicans, leftists, and right, and just extremists. This is a crisis of civilization, and all of us have to come together. And I shake hands with you, my brother Shelton, as we stand together to fight for what's right.
Reverend William Barber, thank you for your appearance and your passion this morning. We appreciate it. Police are searching for whomever